Hey everybody, I'm
Hi.
Jay. This is Krista. I'm going to say I do forever, and today is Money Monday. And we are going to be talking about checking accounts, joint checking accounts versus separate checking accounts. We have our opinions of what we feel that people should do, and we have our opinions of what we do, but we're going to give you the pros and cons.
Yes, it should have a label. The opinions of Jay and Krista may not necessarily represent the opinions
Of
of
others.
others. But we do have some statistics to back it up. So we want to talk about the pros and the cons of each. So let's first talk about joint checking accounts. So basically, what it is you have now gotten married. You've been living separate lives for all these years, living single, and now you're getting married. And do you join those accounts, or do you keep them separate, or something in the middle where you keep them separate and then have a joint account? We kind of want to go through all the pros and cons and what we've seen and what Dave Ramsey says and all of that. We're going to hash through all that today in this video.
Yep.
So let's say, what are the pros of a joint checking account?
So the pros to a joint checking account: couples will find it easier to track their spending. They will find it easier to track their spending. That way, that you don't miss any of your account activity, like what's being paid, what's being withdrawn, deposits, what are happening there. It's a check and balance.
In
It
other
keeps you
words,
both on the same page.
You're keeping tabs on your spouse.
Pretty much. Why did you buy that again?
It's true.
It also, though, in seriousness, it's to help you know where all of your money is going.
Yeah.
In previous videos, Krista and I talked about take everything you spend when you eat out, when you're constantly going and eating out at fast food restaurants or restaurants, like
Or just
fancy
your
restaurants.
day-to-day life.
Keep track of it, and at the end of that 30 days, add it all up, and you'll be surprised how much money you've wasted.
Or where you can take some cuts.
Yeah.
Or
absolutely.
where you don't mind spending a little bit.
Well, and you don't have to eat out every day, but that's a whole different topic.
So some other pros, you're a team, and so now that you're married and you're one, the pros of having everything together is that you work towards one financial goal together or multiple together. You're not working on two separate goals and then trying to kind of put stuff together. You're not roommates. The pros are that
You're a team.
that you're working together, and that you
It's a
can
team effort.
maybe do some goal setting, and you combine it. And I think some of the pros are also that you can get farther together as a team than you can individually.
Separately, yeah. Because if you're going to be separate, then why are you married?
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. If you're not willing to be on the same page financially, it's either you're being selfish with your money, or you don't want to let your spouse see where your money is going, or you just have done it this way that long that you just would rather keep it separate. And Krista and I, we feel that we need to have a joint checking account. We see everything that's being spent, whether it's a hardware store or a fabric store or gas in the car or eating out or whatever. It makes the account very transparent. It's an open book. There's no reason to hide things or keep things a secret. Like a long time ago, we talked to a couple, and the wife would control the finances. Well, she was going and buying furniture, and she was buying clothes, and she wasn't telling the husband, and the husband had no idea. And to this day, the husband probably still doesn't have any idea, because he doesn't care about the finances. He makes the paycheck, he brings it home, and she takes care of it. But if they were on the same page, she would have an accountability, he would have an accountability. They would be a one unit. And then they may have been able to make their money in a investment, or to grow their money instead of just not
Mhm.
realizing where the money's going. So that's
I
something to
think
just think about
I
too.
think too that another pro to having it together is in life you have weak moments and you have strong moments,
Sure.
and your spouse has weak moments and strong moments.
Right.
There's something about being married that often it's not 100%, but often when one spouse is weak, the other one will remain strong and level-headed. And then when it flips and the other person's weak, the other person will be strong and level
Yeah.
headed. And, that does create a little bit of fighting or a little, but what it does is it balances everything out. And there are moments that, Jay and I are at the end of a long, long day and we're exhausted and we just do not feel like cooking dinner. And we're both weak at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm
I
not
mean,
saying that you're not going to be weak at the same time.
especially if you're working on a project together, or if you're both just going 100 miles an hour and you're just exhausted, and there's no way that dinner is going to be made um, in the house. I
Yeah.
mean, it's quick, it's easy to go get something to eat at a restaurant or fast food. I get it.
But
Correct.
for the most part,
Correct.
if I'm feeling weak that day, you seem to be level headed.
Right.
And if you're feeling weak, I seem to be level headed. So there's this checks and balances kind
Right.
of a thing.
And with some of that too is if she's exhausted at the end of her day because she was sewing on this intense dress, and if I was basically taking the day off or relaxing for that day, I can go in the kitchen and I'll make spaghetti or I'll make whatever. So we can have dinner here so we don't have to waste money there. I mean, granted, it's nice to eat out, but you don't have to eat out every day. So, like she said, it's when one's
Yeah.
weak, the other's strong. Usually that's how
And
our relationship is.
as we're saying this too and going through this whole video, just know that your marriage is your marriage and you have an open communication with your spouse.
Right.
Or if you're about to get married, you have an open communication before you get married to discuss all of these things. What are we going to expect from our finances? What is, once we get married, what's it going to be like?
Right.
It's very important to discuss all of those things and be open. So it is your marriage and nobody can make you make a different decision. So if you guys have decided to have separate accounts, then that's your marriage. And if it works for you, let it work for you. But in the case of what we've seen in statistics, we want to share those with you so that you have an even better chance to do it right.
Yeah.
So what are some of the cons maybe to having everything joint put together?
So the cons and the myths are, and some of this is truth, as far as what some spouse would do to retaliate on someone that they're going to leave anyway, anyway. One is some couples, they prefer not to have a joint account, is because one of them goes psycho and goes and withdraws everything out of the savings that they built up together. And that's the excuse of not having a joint checking/savings account. If you do your homework and if you actually communicate with your future spouse and get on the same page with them, you shouldn't have to worry about them going psycho.
But every once in a while, there is a spouse that just has no control. Just maybe they have even an illness, like where shopping is kind of almost like a drug to them. So then what you need to do, I think you can still have everything joint and everything kind of where everything belongs to everybody and you're knowing it. But maybe for that spouse, the other spouse can say, hey, look, I really need to protect the bill money. I really need to protect this money. So can we have it so that you don't have any of these debit cards or checkbooks or anything in your purse, but maybe we
Right.
give you one debit card or one set of cash. Cash is even better because they're going to feel the pain of having to hand over cash.
To part with the
So
cash. Yeah.
what I would say in that case is to give them an allowance, and it sounds childish, but there are seriously people who have almost an illness with spending.
Sure.
And but talk about it.
Well,
Be open with it.
they feed that self gratification or whatever because of
Or comfort.
Yeah, it's like a comfort that they have to go spend money, and they feel better, but that doesn't fix the problem. The problem is them spending all the money.
Yeah.
So until they get to the root of that,
what you're saying is the con could be that you could have a spouse that
they could have come from
Yeah.
a childhood where it was detrimental. Watching their parents spend money frugally, or not frugally. Is it frugally? I can't remember. Anyway, to where they would just waste all their money, blow it, just spend it, and then not have anything left for them to eat. Or that's how their parents dealt with having comfort, or they found comfort in that. Maybe the relationship wasn't that great. There's all kinds of situations, but I feel, and this is me, I feel that couples should have a joint checking account, that couples should be on the same page. They should be a team. They're one unit.
Communicate.
And communicate.
So should we go to the pros of having... Okay, so now we're going to go to the separate, like you have either separate accounts or you have separate accounts with one joint account in the middle. So the husband's going to work and putting his money in his, and he decides where all his money goes. The wife is going to work and putting all the money in her account, deciding where that's to go, whether you decide that they're each are paying certain parts of the bills.
And we do know couples. We do know some couples that do that, and that works for them. But Krista and I don't do that.
So the pros would be if that works for your marriage. But I think what I've seen too is on second marriages or marriages that maybe they have lived a single life before. So they're used to they're used to being single.
Right.
And then when they join that, they kind of keep their singleness.
Right.
So,
I get it.
Okay. And another pro, I would think, and I'm just doing devil's advocate here and trying to see all sides, trying to be fair.
She's always fair.
The other side I would see is maybe it's a second marriage and there's a situation where one spouse has to pay a lot of alimony and child support, or I was going to say is in a lot of debt. However, once you get married, these are things you should have talked about before you got married.
And things to think about.
Because once you get married, your debt, his debt is your debt, and your debt is his debt. Yep. And whether you have separate checking accounts or not, you are responsible for their debt. If you get divorced, it's like 50-50.
Yeah.
So be careful when you're getting married. If you're already in that situation, you might have to step through that lightly. Maybe you can turn around and say, hey, let's still work as a team, and we're going to conquer, and I'm pointing at you, like you have all the debt.
Actually, we didn't have a lot of debt, so that was a blessing right there.
Yeah,
but she's using that as an example.
We were 19. I mean, how much debt could you be in? 19.
Not much.
So, but I'm saying, say I had a ton of debt and you're marrying me, and maybe at that point it's good to have a good conversation. Say, okay, we're gonna.
The conversation would be, what are you gonna do about all your debt?
It would?
No, I'm just kidding.
That's rude.
I'm kidding. I am kidding.
So basically, if you have married this person, he needs more coffee, obviously. If you have married this person, you are one now. So you need to start being on the same team and conquer the debt together. Right. It doesn't matter if it's yours or his or yours or whatever. I think it just said the same thing. But
something like that.
It doesn't matter whose debt it is. Once you get married, it's yours.
Right.
So guys need to communicate, figure out how you're going to conquer that, and work together. So that was some cons, that was pros for separate. Maybe there's some real reasons, and your marriage is your marriage,
Yeah.
and you have to make the decisions, but you guys have to together make those decisions.
Let's put it this way. So if you guys are going to get married or you've been married for a little while, here's some things to think about. If you have a joint checking account and say you've been married for a little, like a year or 2 years or a little longer, and it's not working, then I say try the separate accounts and then put money for all the bills from each of your paychecks into that main account to pay the bills and decide who's going to pay what. I mean, like I said, some couples that we know, it works for them. For us, that would not work. But you have to find what works for you. And I know that sounds cliche, but you are going to seriously have to figure it out and do what works best for you guys. What works best for us is we have a joint checking account. We put all the money in there and the bills get paid. Anything left over, we move it to savings. We try to account for every dollar we make, whatever it is, and invest it or save it. We follow Dave Ramsey.
So speaking of Dave Ramsey, what are some of the cons of having a separate account really quickly? And then let's go to what statistics and Dave Ramsey and a lot of people say.
Here's what Dave Ramsey says. So 100% of the time, where you spend your money and how you spend your money is a result of your value system, And he says, if you want a quality marriage, okay? So he also says that he uses this example. Jesus said, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. That's Matthew 6:21.
So let's talk about that for a minute.
Yep.
Okay, you said value system. So if it's a value system, have you and your spouse sat down and talked about what your values are? That is something even bigger than finances.
Yeah.
Like, what is important to you? They say you can actually open up your checkbook, or now it's just your online banking. And
to see,
you can see where you spend your money, and that's where your heart is.
To see what's important to you.
To see what's important.
Are you giving money away to people? Are you helping others? Or are you spending it on big screen TVs and stereo systems, or clothing or shoes or whatever? I mean, where's your spend? Where is all your money going?
Yeah, and so you could do that with both of you guys, but have you sat down with your spouse and talked about what your value system is? What is important to you?
Yeah.
And if that's buying a cabin, then work together to do that. If that is, helping people buy their groceries, then go do that. If it's a little of each, if it's that you really want your house to look nice and that's important to you, or if you want a savings account, what are your values? Yeah. You have to have that discussion with your spouse. And if you have if you're living like single people, you're not really married.
Yeah. And then the best part is when you guys sit down and you talk about values, you probably need to figure out if their values match your values.
And hopefully you did that before you got married.
Because you don't want to be unequally yoked with your spouse, because it's going to be a disaster. It's not going to turn out well.
And you're two different people, so there are going to be some different things.
Right.
But there's that compromise value. There's things that the husband will like, and there's things that the wife will like that are not just perfectly lined up.
Right.
But the core values, if you can get on the same page with that, and get on the same page with your money, you're going to go far and you're going to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's what we want. We want to see you win.
Absolutely. Also, this is another Dave Ramsey quote. When couples plan out their money together and sharing your fears, you're sharing your dreams, you're sharing your goals, together you are reaching for those things.
That's exactly what we were just saying, too.
Yeah, and that's Dave Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey is right.
And also, he said, you are not going to lose your identity in the process. Just because you consolidate your money doesn't mean you lose yourself. you've gained another person.
Let's talk
In the
about that.
relationship, you've gained an
Fears.
extra person.
What are your fears of putting the money together? What
I
are
don't
your
have fear at all,
fears?
but
What are your
what are
money
their
fears?
fears? Yeah.
What are your money fears?
Yeah. What are
Um,
you afraid of? I mean, if you put money in a joint
and
checking
work
account
together.
together and worked as a team, what are you afraid of?
And have you talked to your spouse about those fears?
Yeah. Or do you even have fears, or are you just going to do it like your parents did?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And maybe some of it's like a second marriage where the first one
Was a disaster.
was a disaster, and
Yeah.
maybe that spouse took their money, and they're like, I
Yep.
am not going to go through that again.
And I could see that.
Yeah.
That I could see, where
Mm-hmm.
the second marriage, the spouse is like, learned learned the first time.
Yeah.
So
there's more than just, I mean, there's the statistics of what's going to work best.
Yep.
There's the advice from the experts.
Yep.
But then there's your marriage, you know? And I think if you are communicating with your spouse and sitting down, you do not have to fit into a cookie cutter mold of every
Mhm.
other marriage out there.
No.
You've got to be you.
Yeah. Well, and also another thing Dave says about having a joint checking account, he says you'll make wiser decisions, you'll be wiser, and it forces you to communicate in your marriage.
That's a good one.
So, yeah. And very few people build wealth without their spouse participating.
So that's a statistics that he had, that that most of the people who have gotten wealthy when they were married, they didn't do it separately. They did it as a team.
No. If you have double the money and you are going at it together, that's more funds to put somewhere, whether it's investing in mutual funds or savings or whatever. You're both going at it with the same goal. If you don't do that, then you're putting your money in your savings and she's putting her money in her savings, and who knows if it's going to stay in savings, or you know, suddenly you ask her, you know, years later, well, how much do you have in your savings? I have this. Well, she says, well, I have like $50. $50? What are you, nuts? I mean, this has been years now. So you can see,
even that,
you know,
that even shows that even if you kept your money separate, if you plan on growing old together in the long run,
yeah,
if she didn't save any money and
she's
you
gonna be
did
out
all
on
the
the street.
saving, oh, you think so?
Oh, I'm just kidding.
I hate to
I'm
tell
kidding.
you, but
I'm just
the whole
kidding.
time your money was her money anyway,
Yeah.
because she spent all hers and didn't, and now she gets all yours.
Right.
So
One way or the other.
one way or another, you've got joint accounts.
Yeah.
Whether you know it or not.
Yep. One way or the other.
Oh man.
But I mean, it's something to definitely talk to your future spouse about, or your spouse. If you're a newlywed or if you've been married a long time, I mean, some couples, and Dave had said, some couples that have talked to him after one of his seminars that he does on money matters, you know, they came up to him later and said, you know, you've saved our marriage. And he's like, what do you mean I saved your marriage? This isn't a marriage seminar. This is a money seminar. And, you know, they told him, this is a big deal to us. You know, we're doing it your way now, and it's completely changed our lives. Where our marriage was on the brink of divorce, where now it's not, and we're both going the same direction, and we're communicating better. So just things to keep in mind.
I do have to say that often, especially to somebody who's a spender or somebody who's more of a free spirit, the Dave Ramsey program sounds like it's, you know, scary. And the word budget sounds scary. But ironically, it actually gives so much more freedom. And if you do it right and you open up in communication, there is freedom for both parties.
Right.
For both husband and wife.
Yep.
Because whether you're a free spirit and need some spending money, you build that in. You build in what they need.
Yep.
And if you're a saver and want to save, you build that in so they have the security. So when you work together as a team and you can put that money together, you can meet everybody's needs. It doesn't have to be all one or all the other.
Right.
It can be.
It's compromise. It's
Mhm.
communication and compromise. That's what it is. That's what it comes down to.
It's a fine dance.
Yeah. And Krista does a great budget, and we got spending money, and then we also have savings, and we pay the bills. And she's a smart cookie when it comes to finances, and I'm blessed to have her as my wife. She's amazing. She's awesome, and she's a whiz when it comes to finances. And
And Jay's a lot of fun.
I am a boatload of fun. I try to be reserved on the videos somewhat, so I can be more serious. But yeah, it's been a blessing being married to her. So, and we're gonna leave you with this: two things. A wise man thinks ahead, a fool doesn't, and even brags about it. And that's Proverbs 13:16. And the second one is the plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. Proverbs 21:5.
Super
So
good.
we're hoping that this has helped you guys. We hope to see you liking, subscribing,
Yes, like,
ring the bell.
subscribe,
Let us know.
comment.
Yeah, comments, opinions, ideas. Um, has this helped? Has it not? Let us know. And we'll see you guys on the flip side on Friday. And then we're going to do the 5 love languages. So until then, this is Jay and Krista helping you say I do forever.
Love you guys.
See you
See you.
guys.
Bye.